The year was 2847, and humanity had finally reached the stars. After centuries of dreaming and decades of hard work, the United Earth Coalition had built ships that could travel between solar systems. It was the greatest achievement in human history. Every person on Earth felt proud when the first diplomatic mission launched toward the center of the galaxy, where an ancient empire ruled over hundreds of worlds. Admiral Catherine Ortiz commanded the Starship Endeavor, a vessel that represented the best technology Earth could offer. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen many battles during the unification wars on Earth. Standing beside her on the bridge was Commander Daniel Hughes, a younger officer with a quick mind and a temper he struggled to control. The journey took 8 months. 8 months of traveling through the cold darkness between stars, following signals that alien civilizations had been broadcasting for thousands of years. When the Endeavor finally arrived at the border of the Zenthari Galactic Empire, a dozen alien warships surrounded it within minutes. The Zenthari were an ancient race. Their empire had existed for 12,000 years, spreading across 300 star systems. They had conquered or absorbed every civilization they encountered. Their ships moved through wormholes, gateways that allowed instant travel across impossible distances. While humans spent months crawling between stars, the Zenthari could cross the entire galaxy in hours. Admiral Ortiz was escorted to Zenthar Prime, the capital world of the Empire. The planet was beautiful in a cold way, covered in towers of crystal and metal that stretched toward purple clouds. Billions of Zenthari lived there, along with servants from a dozen conquered species. The High Council received the human delegation in a chamber, so large that clouds formed near its ceiling. Emperor Voreth sat on a throne, carved from a single piece of black crystal. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with skin that sparkled like diamonds, and 4 eyes that glowed with ancient intelligence. Admiral Ortiz presented Earth's offer of friendship and trade. She spoke of humanity's desire to learn from older civilizations and contribute to galactic society. She offered technology, art, culture, and the promise of peaceful cooperation. Emperor Voroth listened in silence. When she finished, he leaned forward on his throne and made a sound that the translator device rendered as laughter. "You traveled here in ships that burn fuel," the Emperor said. "You bend gravity wells to move faster. But your fastest vessels take months to cross distances. Our children travel in their toys. You are infants. You have barely learned to walk, and you come to us speaking of partnership." The council members joined their emperor in laughter. The sound echoed through the vast chamber, bouncing off walls that had witnessed the surrender of countless civilizations. Admiral Ortiz kept her face still, but Commander Hughes could see her hands trembling slightly at her sides. He felt his own anger rising, but forced himself to remain silent. "We have studied your world," Emperor Voreth continued. "You have adequate resources. Minerals we find useful. Labor we could employ in our mining operations. The Zenthari Empire offers Earth a place among our tributary worlds. You will pay taxes in resources and workers. In exchange, we will not destroy you." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Ortiz asked quietly. The Emperor's 4 eyes narrowed. "Every species we have encountered has eventually understood their place in the natural order. Some required more convincing than others. The choice is yours, but the outcome is inevitable. You cannot fight us. You cannot run from us. You cannot hide from us. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are toys." He waved one massive hand dismissively. "Go home, human. Tell your leaders what you have seen. Tell them that resistance is not merely futile. It is ridiculous." The laughter followed them as they left the chamber. It followed them through the corridors of the Imperial Palace. It followed them back to their ship and stayed with them during the long journey home. Admiral Ortiz did not speak for 3 days after leaving Zenthar Prime. She sat in her quarters, staring at recordings of the meeting, watching the Emperor's contempt play across his alien face again and again. On the 4th day, she called Commander Hughes to her office. "Daniel," she said, "what do you know about Project Blink?" Hughes frowned. He had heard rumors, whispers about a research program so secret that most military officers denied its existence. Something about teleportation, about moving objects instantly across vast distances without any physical travel. "Only rumors, Admiral," he replied. "Some kind of transportation technology. Most people think it is just a story." Ortiz nodded slowly. "It is not a story. I have seen the preliminary results. Our scientists have achieved something the Zenthari believe is impossible. They have moved objects across millions of kilometers without any wormhole, without any gateway, without any fixed endpoint." Hughes felt his heart beat faster. "If that is true, then we could... We could appear anywhere," Ortiz finished. "Anywhere in the galaxy, without warning, without any infrastructure. The Zenthari need their gateway stations. We would need nothing but coordinates." She turned to face him directly. "The technology is not ready. It works on small objects, but scaling it to something as large as a starship will take years, perhaps decades. But I believe it can be done, and when it is done, everything will change." Admiral Ortiz sent a message back to Earth Command, transmitted through quantum relay stations that the Zenthari did not know existed. She told them about the humiliation, about the demands for tribute, about the threat of destruction. She told them that Earth had a choice, submit or fight, and she told them that fighting might actually be possible in a facility buried deep beneath the Nevada desert. A man named Samuel Patterson received that message. He was the director of Project Blink, a scientist who had spent his entire career chasing what most people called impossible dreams. Patterson walked through reinforced corridors until he reached the heart of his facility. A device hummed there, surrounded by instruments and monitoring equipment. Dr. Linda Marsh, his lead physicist, looked up from her console with tired eyes. "We saw the transmission," she said. "The Zenthari broadcast it across the galaxy. They wanted everyone to see humanity humiliated." "Then they made a mistake," Patterson replied. "They showed us exactly what we are dealing with, and they showed us that we need to hurry." He looked at the device, the prototype that had already achieved what the ancient Zenthari considered impossible. It was small now, capable of moving only objects no larger than a car. But Patterson could see its potential, could imagine fleets of warships appearing from nowhere, striking without warning, vanishing before any counterattack. "How long to scale this up to a battleship?" he asked. Dr. Marsh exchanged glances with her colleague, Dr. Victor Reyes. They had done the calculations many times. The engineering challenges were enormous. The power requirements were almost beyond imagination. 5 years, Dr. Marsh said finally. "Maybe less, if we get everything we need." Patterson nodded. 5 years of secrecy. 5 years of development. 5 years while the Zenthari laughed and waited for humanity to accept its place as a servant race. They would not be laughing forever. "You have everything you need," Patterson said. "As of today, Project Blink is the highest priority of the United Earth Coalition. Whatever resources you require, whatever personnel, whatever funding, it is yours." He turned and walked back toward his office, already composing the message he would send to the president. Earth would not submit. Earth would not bow. Earth would smile and nod and pretend to consider the Empire's generous offer while building, something the galaxy had never seen, and when they were ready. When the technology was proven and the ships were built, they would show the Zenthari and every other civilization in the galaxy that humanity was not to be laughed at. The mockery would end. The reckoning would begin. 5 years passed slowly on Earth, but they passed in secret. The galaxy moved on and forgot about the primitive humans who had dared to send diplomats to the Zenthari Empire. Emperor Voroth mentioned them sometimes during council meetings, always as a joke. His courtiers laughed at the appropriate moments, and then they returned to the serious business of managing 300 star systems. The Zenthari conquered 2 more civilizations during those 5 years, a species called the Mordani, who had developed impressive defensive technology but lacked the ability to strike back, and the Telluri, gentle beings who surrendered without a fight when the Imperial fleet appeared in their skies. Both were absorbed into the Empire, their people put to work in mines and factories, their cultures slowly erased. No one paid attention to Earth. This was exactly what humanity wanted. Admiral Catherine Ortiz retired from active command and took a new position as fleet commander of the Earth Defense Initiative, a military organization that officially did not exist. She worked from a base hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, coordinating efforts that spanned the entire solar system. Commander Daniel Hughes, now promoted to captain, spent those years testing prototypes and pushing the limits of the new technology. He flew experimental ships that teleported short distances, then longer distances, then across the entire solar system. Some tests failed. Equipment melted. Power systems exploded. 3 pilots died during the early trials, their names recorded in a classified memorial that only a handful of people would ever see, but each failure taught them something new, and each success brought them closer to their goal. Dr. Linda Marsh worked without rest. She lost weight. Her hair turned gray. She missed birthdays, holidays, and the funeral of her own mother because she could not leave the facility. But she never complained, and she never stopped pushing forward. The blink drive, as they called it, operated on principles that contradicted everything the galactic community believed about physics. The Xanthari wormhole technology required fixed points, massive gateway stations that took decades to construct. A ship could only travel from one gateway to another, following paths that had been established over millennia. The blink drive needed nothing but coordinates. A ship could appear anywhere at any time, with no warning and no trace. There were no gateways to destroy, no paths to predict, no way to know where a blink-equipped vessel might appear next. Director Patterson watched the progress from his office on Luna Base, the secret facility that served as headquarters for the entire project. He was getting old. His hair had turned white and his hand shook sometimes when he reached for his coffee cup. But his mind remained sharp, and his determination never wavered. We have successfully teleported an object of 50 tons across 200 million kilometers, Dr. Marsh reported during one of their weekly meetings. The accuracy is within 3 meters of the target coordinates. Alessio nodded. How large was the object? A cargo container filled with monitoring equipment. Everything arrived intact. Power systems, computers, life support, all functional. And the next step? Dr. Marsh took a deep breath. A crewed vessel. Small at first, maybe a fighter-sized ship with a single pilot. Then larger. A destroyer. A carrier. She paused. We believe we can achieve full-scale deployment within 18 months. The first crewed test of the blink drive took place on March 3rd, 2851. Captain Hughes volunteered to pilot the small vessel himself. Despite protests from his superiors, he sat alone in a cockpit barely large enough for his chair, surrounded by equipment that hummed with barely contained energy. Ready for translation? He said into his communicator. His voice was steady, but his heart was pounding. Dr. Marsh's voice came back through his earpiece. Coordinates locked. Destination: asteroid field near Jupiter orbit. Distance: 700 million kilometers. Initiating blink in 10 seconds? Hughes closed his eyes. He thought about the Emperor's laughter, about the contempt in those 4 glowing eyes. He thought about the species that had already fallen to the Xanthari, the civilizations erased and forgotten, double quotes, 3.2, 1. Blink. There was no sensation of movement, no flash of light, no sound. One moment, Hughes was in lunar orbit, surrounded by the familiar stars of the inner solar system. The next moment, he was somewhere else entirely, floating among chunks of rock and ice while Jupiter's massive form filled half his view screen. Translation successful, he reported, his voice cracking slightly. I am at the target coordinates. All systems nominal. Cheers erupted in the control room back on Luna Base. Dr. Marsh wiped tears from her eyes. Director Patterson simply nodded, a small smile crossing his weathered face. They had done it. They had achieved the impossible. The next 18 months were a blur of activity. Shipyards hidden inside asteroids worked around the clock. Building vessels designed around the blink drive. The Horizon-class carriers were enormous. each one capable of transporting thousands of fighters and hundreds of crew. The Spectre-class destroyers were smaller, but heavily armed. Designed to appear behind enemy vessels and strike before they could react, the Phantom-class fighters were single-pilot craft that could blink independently. Appearing and disappearing like ghosts, Captain Hughes took command of the first completed Horizon-class carrier, which he named Vanguard. He spent months training his crew in tactics that no military force had ever used before. How do you fight when you can appear anywhere? How do you defend when your enemy cannot predict your movements? How do you plan a battle when the entire concept of position becomes meaningless? They developed new strategies, new doctrines, new ways of thinking about warfare. They ran simulations and war games, testing themselves against virtual enemies that fought like the Zenthari. They won every time, often within minutes. Fleet Commander Ortiz visited the Vanguard shortly before it was declared fully operational. She walked through its corridors, examined its weapons, spoke with its crew. When she finally stood on the bridge beside Captain Hughes, she allowed herself a rare smile. "It is beautiful," she said quietly. "It is a weapon," Hughes replied. "Yes," Ortiz nodded. "But it is also a statement. A message to the galaxy that humanity will not be conquered, will not be enslaved, will not be forgotten." By the summer of 2852, the Earth Defense Initiative had assembled a fleet of 12 carriers, 48 destroyers, and 200 fighters. Every ship was equipped with a blink drive. Every crew was trained and ready. They were waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. They knew that once they showed the galaxy what they had built, everything would change. There would be no going back to hiding, no return to secrecy. They needed the Zenthari to make the first move, to provide justification for what would follow. Director Patterson, now in his 80s, and knowing that he did not have much time left, gave the final briefing to Fleet Commander Ortiz and Captain Hughes. "The Emperor believes we are nothing," he said. "He believes we will eventually send tribute ships loaded with resources and workers, accepting our place as another conquered species. He is waiting for us to submit." "We will never submit," Ortiz said firmly. "No." Patterson smiled, a fierce expression on his aged face. "We will not. But we will let him think we might. We will be patient. We will be silent. And when he finally loses patience and sends his fleet to collect what he believes is owed to him, we will show him what humanity can do," Hughes finished. They did not have to wait long. Word reached Earth in early 2853 that a Zenthari battle group was being assembled near the Sol Gateway. Preparing to enter human space, the Empire was coming to collect its tribute. The humans were ready to give them something else entirely: the Zenthari. Battle group emerged from the wormhole gateway near Jupiter on a cold morning in March 2853. 15 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, took formation in a perfect arrow pointed at Earth. Fleet Commander Vorath, the younger, led the expedition. He was the Emperor's nephew, a young officer eager to prove himself worthy of his family name. This mission was supposed to be simple: travel to the human homeworld, demand tribute, and return home with ships full of resources and slaves. If the primitives refuse, he had permission to bombard their cities until they changed their minds. Vorath the Younger had never lost a battle. He had never even faced a serious challenge. The species conquered by the Zenthari usually surrendered the moment they saw Imperial warships in their skies. Those who resisted were crushed within hours. He expected this mission to be no different. His ships moved through the solar system at speeds humanity could not match. They passed Mars without slowing down. They ignored the scattered human settlements on moons and asteroids, considering them beneath notice. They were heading for Earth, the blue-green jewel at the heart of this insignificant system. On Earth, President Maria Vasquez watched the approaching fleet from her office in Geneva. She was a small woman with dark hair and calm eyes, elected just 2 years earlier on a platform of preparation and vigilance. She had known this day would come. Everyone had known. "They will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours, her military advisor reported. "They have not responded to our communications. Their weapons are powered but not yet targeting anything. President Vasquez nodded. They want to frighten us first. Show us what we are facing before they make their demands. She stood and walked to the window. The sky above Geneva was clear and blue, showing no sign of the alien warships approaching from beyond the moon. Millions of people were going about their daily lives, unaware that the fate of humanity would be decided in the next few hours. Is Fleet Commander Ortiz ready? The president asked. Yes, ma'am. The entire fleet is standing by. Let them make their threats. Let them believe we are helpless. A small smile crossed her face. And then we show them how wrong they are. 6 hours later, the Zenthari battle group took position in Earth orbit. The flagship, a massive vessel called Eternal Dominion, positioned itself directly above the Atlantic Ocean. Its shadow fell across the surface of the planet. Like a dark omen, Vorath the Younger opened a communication channel. His image appeared on screens around the world, a young Zenthari with crystalline skin and 4 eyes that glowed with arrogance. Ah, people of Earth, he announced. I am Fleet Commander Vorath the Younger, representative of Emperor Vorath and the Zenthari Galactic Empire. 6 years ago, your leaders were offered a place in our empire. They were given time to consider. That time is now over. He paused, letting his words sink in. You will provide tribute. 20 million tons of processed minerals, 1 million workers to serve in imperial mining operations. These demands are not negotiable. You have 1 standard hour tea. Oh, begin compliance. If you refuse, if you resist, if you even hesitate, ... His eyes narrowed. We will reduce your largest cities to ash. Starting with the one called New York. The transmission ended. Silence fell across the world as 8 billion humans considered what they had just heard. In homes and offices and streets around the planet, people looked at each other with fear in their eyes. But in the hidden asteroid base where Fleet Commander Ortiz waited, there was no fear. Only cold determination. Operation Revelation is authorized. President Vasquez said through the secure channel. Show them what we have built. Ortiz turned to her communications officer. Signal all ships. Initiate blink on my mark. 12 Horizon-class carriers activated their drives simultaneously. 48 Spectre-class destroyers powered up beside them. 200 Phantom-class fighters hummed with energy. Mark, the Zenthari detected nothing. Their sensors showed empty space in every direction around Earth. Their battle group floated in perfect formation. Weapons ready. Waiting for the primitives to surrender. Then the Vanguard appeared. Captain. Daniel Hughes brought his carrier out of blink directly behind the Eternal Dominion. So close that the 2 ships nearly touched. The massive human vessel hung there like a ghost, silent and deadly. Its weapons pointed at the Zenthari flagship's unprotected engines. Vorath the Younger spun around in his command chair. His tactical officers were shouting, their instruments screaming warnings that made no sense. An enemy ship had appeared from nowhere, bypassing every detection system. Ignoring every law of physics, the Zenthari understood. That is impossible, Vorath whispered. They do not have gateway technology. They cannot have gateway technology. Before he could form another thought, the other 11 carriers appeared. They materialized in a perfect sphere around the Zenthari battle group, blocking every possible escape route. The destroyers blinked into existence moments later. Their weapons already locked onto targets. Captain Hughes opened a communication channel. His face appeared on the view screen of the Eternal Dominion, calm and cold and utterly without fear. Fleet Commander Vorath, he said. I am Captain Daniel Hughes of the Earth Defense Initiative. You have entered sovereign human territory without authorization. You have threatened our people with destruction. You have demanded slaves. His eyes hardened. You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender. This is impossible, Vorath repeated, his voice rising. You are primitives. You burn fuel. You crawl between stars. You cannot. 50 seconds, Hughes interrupted. Vorath the Younger looked around at his tactical display. 15 Zenthari warships, surrounded by dozens of human vessels that had appeared from nothing. His ships were powerful, but they were designed to fight enemies who approached along predictable paths. They were not designed for this. We will retreat, he decided. Fall back to the gateway. We will return with the full Imperial Armada. His ships turned and accelerated toward the wormhole gateway near Jupiter. The Xanthari drives were faster than anything humanity had built. They would reach the gateway in minutes, escape through it, and return with enough firepower to burn Earth to cinders. They never reached it. A single Phantom-class fighter blinked inside the gateway station's reactor core. The pilot, Lieutenant Nina Cortez, had volunteered for the mission, knowing it would be the most dangerous flight of her life. She had exactly 4 seconds to deposit the fusion charge and blink out before the detonation. She made it with half a second to spare. The gateway station exploded in a flash of light visible from Earth. The wormhole collapsed. The carefully maintained tunnel through space-time tearing itself apart. The Xanthari's only escape route was gone. Your time is up, Captain Hughes said softly. Voreth the Younger stared at his view screen. The gateway was destroyed. His fleet was surrounded. He had no reinforcements, no escape, no options. Power down your weapons, Hughes repeated. Surrender your vessels. Your crews will not be harmed. For a long moment, Voreth considered ordering his ships to fight. The Xanthari had never surrendered to anyone. His uncle would be furious. His family would be shamed. But he was also young enough to want to live. Stand down, he ordered quietly. All ships, power down weapons. The human vessels moved in to secure the surrendered fleet. Marines in advanced combat suits boarded each ship, taking control of systems and escorting Xanthari crew members to holding areas. Everything was done professionally, efficiently, without unnecessary violence. Captain Hughes personally escorted Voreth the Younger from the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. The young Xanthari walked in silence, his 4 eyes fixed on the deck plates. You surprised us, Voreth, finally said. No one has ever surprised the Empire. We know, Hughes replied. That was the point. On Earth, people emerged from shelters and looked up at the sky. The alien warships that had threatened their world were now captured prizes. The impossible had happened. Humanity had faced the mightiest empire in the galaxy, and one President Vasquez addressed the world that evening. Her voice was calm but firm as she explained what had happened. The Xanthari came to enslave us, she said. They believed we were weak. They believed we had no choice but to submit. They were wrong. Today, humanity showed the galaxy that we will not bow. We will not kneel. We will stand as equals among the stars. Across the planet, 8 billion voices rose in celebration. In the hidden asteroid bases, in the shipyards and research facilities, the people who had made this victory possible allowed themselves to smile, but fleet. Commander Ortiz knew this was just the beginning. The Emperor would not accept this humiliation. He would send his entire armada, every ship in his empire, to crush humanity once and for all. And when he did, humanity would be ready. The news reached Emperor Voreth within hours of the battle. He was holding court on Xanthar Prime, listening to reports from across his vast empire, when his chief advisor interrupted with a transmission that made his crystalline skin turn pale. His nephew captured. 15 warships seized. A gateway station destroyed. And worst of all, the impossible truth that the humans could teleport. The Emperor rose from his throne. He stood there for a long moment, saying nothing, his 4 eyes staring at the message as if he could change its contents through sheer force of will. Impossible, he finally said. The humans are primitives. They cannot have developed technology superior to ours. The evidence suggests otherwise, Your Majesty, his advisor replied carefully. Multiple sensors recorded the human vessels appearing from nowhere, with no detectable energy signature, no wormhole tunnel, nothing. They simply ... materialized. Voreth began to pace. His massive form moved back and forth across the throne room, his mind racing through implications that grew worse with every passing second. The Xanthari. Empire was built on their wormhole network for 12,000 years. They had dominated the galaxy because they could move instantly between fixed points, while their enemies crawled through space at slower than light speeds. That advantage had allowed them to conquer hundreds of civilizations, to project power across distances that would otherwise be impossible to manage. But if the humans could appear anywhere, without gateways, without fixed points, without any warning at all, they could strike our shipyards, Voreth muttered. Our command centers, our supply lines, our homeworld, the advisor added quietly. The Emperor stopped pacing. He turned to face his council, his eyes burning with cold fury. Mobilize the Imperial Armada, he commanded. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we possess, we will travel to the human system and burn their planet to ash. We will eliminate this threat before it can spread. Admiral Krath, the Empire's most experienced military commander, stepped forward. His crystalline face was troubled. Your Majesty, if the humans can truly teleport without gateways, then attacking their homeworld may be... unwise. They could strike anywhere while our fleet is away. Then we will leave defenders here, Voreth snapped. The Imperial Guard, the home fleet. Enough ships to hold Zenthar Prime against any attack. And if it is not enough, the Emperor turned his burning gaze on the Admiral. Then you will make it enough. The humans are one species on one world. We are an empire spanning 300 systems. They may have surprised us with this technology, but they cannot match our numbers. They cannot match our experience. They cannot match our will. The mobilization took for months of gathering ships from across the Empire, for months of assembling the largest military force in galactic history, for months of propaganda broadcasts telling the citizens of the Empire that humanity was a savage, dangerous species that must be destroyed for the safety of all civilized beings. 3,000 warships gathered at the staging point near Zenthar Prime. Carriers, battleships, destroyers, support vessels. The fleet stretched across millions of kilometers of space, a forest of metal and energy that blotted out the stars. Emperor Vorath himself came to address the fleet before departure. His image appeared on every screen, in every ship, before every soldier who would fight in the coming war. The humans believe they have won a victory, he said. They believe their trick has frightened us. They are wrong. The Zenthari Empire has stood for 12,000 years. We have faced Chali. Enges before. We have conquered enemies before, and we will conquer the humans as we have conquered all others. His voice rose with conviction. Go forth and destroy them. Leave nothing but ash and memory. Show the galaxy that no species, no technology, no trick can stand against the might of the Zenthari. The fleet departed through the wormhole network, jumping from gateway to gateway, moving toward the distant star system where humanity waited. 3,000 ships filled with soldiers who had never known defeat. Commanded by officers who believed victory was inevitable, they emerged from the final gateway just outside the Sol system. Sensors swept the area, searching for human defenses for the fleet that had captured Vorath the Younger. They found nothing. The approaches to Earth were empty. Admiral Krath frowned at his displays. Where are they? Perhaps they fled, his subordinate suggested. Perhaps they know they cannot face our full strength. Perhaps... But Krath was not convinced. The humans had shown cunning in their previous encounter. They would not simply run. They would have a plan. His suspicions were confirmed moments later, when an emergency transmission arrived from Zenthar Prime. The human fleet had appeared in orbit around the Zenthari homeworld. Not some of it. All of it. 12 carriers, 48 destroyers, 200 fighters. They had blinked across thousands of light years, bypassing the entire wormhole network. Appearing at the heart of the Empire while its defenders were far away, Admiral Krath felt his blood turn cold. The humans had not been waiting at Earth. They had never intended to defend their homeworld in a conventional battle. While the Imperial Armada traveled through gateways following predictable paths, the humans had simply skipped across the galaxy to strike where the Empire was weakest. Turn the fleet around, Krath ordered. Maximum speed back to Zenthar Prime. The wormhole network was not built for speed. It was built for stability, for reliability, for moving ships along established routes. Jumping back through the gateways would take hours, hours that the Empire did not have, on Zenthor Prime. Fleet Commander Catherine Ortiz watched her ships take positions around the alien capital. The planet below was beautiful, covered in crystal towers and gleaming cities, home to billions of beings who had never known war on their own soil. She opened a communication channel. Her voice was transmitted to every screen on the planet, interrupting broadcasts, overriding government systems, reaching every citizen of the Empire. "People of the Zenthari Empire," she said. "I am Fleet Commander Catherine Ortiz of the United Earth Coalition. Your Emperor sent his armada to destroy our world while we slept. He believed we were helpless. He believed we had no way to strike back." She paused, letting her words sink in. He was wrong. Your armada is far from home. Your homeworld is undefended. Your people are seeing this transmission and understanding, perhaps for the first time, that their empire is not invincible. On the surface of Zenthor Prime, billions of citizens looked up at the sky. Human ships were visible now, dark shapes against the purple clouds, surrounding their world in an unbreakable ring. "We do not wish to destroy you," Ortiz continued. "We wish to free you. The age of Zenthari supremacy is over. The age of galactic equality begins now." The skeleton fleet left to guard Zenthor Prime moved to intercept the human vessels. They were outnumbered, but they were Zenthari. They had never lost a battle in their entire history. They lost this one in 17 minutes. The human ships appeared and disappeared unpredictably, blinking in and out of existence, striking from impossible angles. Captain Daniel Hughes led his fighters in attacks that defied conventional tactics. They would appear behind a Zenthari warship, fire their weapons, and vanish before return fire could connect. They would reappear kilometers away, strike another target, vanish again. The Zenthari commanders tried to adapt. They formed defensive formations. They tracked the human movements, tried to predict where they would appear next. But there was no pattern to predict, no strategy to counter. The humans could be anywhere. The humans could be everywhere. By the time the Imperial Armada came racing back through the wormhole network, it was over. The orbital defense platforms around Zenthor Prime had been disabled. The Imperial Palace had been occupied by human marines. Emperor Voreth's throne sat empty, human flag draped across it. Admiral Krath brought the Armada to a halt outside Zenthor Prime's orbit. 3,000 warships faced a human fleet that was outnumbered 20-1. But Krath had seen what the humans could do. He had watched recordings of the battle. He knew that numbers meant nothing when your enemy could strike from anywhere and disappear before you could respond. "Admiral," his communications officer said quietly, "the humans are requesting a negotiation." Krath closed his 4 eyes. He thought about 12,000 years of empire. He thought about all the species they had conquered, all the civilizations they had absorbed. He thought about what would happen if he ordered his fleet to attack, and the humans simply blinked away, appearing at some other vital target, continuing to strike where the Empire was weak. "Open the channel," he said heavily. Fleet Commander Ortiz appeared on his screen. Her face was tired, but determined. "Admiral Krath," she said, "we have your Emperor's palace. We have your orbital defenses. We could destroy your shipyards, your communications networks, your infrastructure. We could cripple your empire while your fleet watches helplessly." "Why have you not done so?" Krath asked. "Because we are not conquerors. We are not here to replace your empire with our own. We are here to end it. Permanently." She leaned forward. "The age of single-species domination is over, Admiral. Every civilization in this galaxy deserves freedom. Every species deserves equality. We can achieve that through negotiation, or we can achieve it through continued war. The choice is yours." Krath looked at the human ships surrounding his homeworld. He looked at his own massive armada, all its power suddenly meaningless. "I will convey your message to the Emperor," he said finally. "We will negotiate." The war was not over, but the reckoning had come. The galaxy would never be the same. The negotiations began 3 days after the battle for Zenthar. Prime Emperor Voroth refused to participate personally, sending his advisors instead, but everyone knew that the real decisions were no longer his to make. His empire had been built on the belief that the Zenthari could not be challenged. That belief was now shattered. Fleet Commander Catherine Ortiz represented humanity at the negotiating table. She was joined by President Maria Vasquez, who had traveled to Zenthar Prime aboard the Vanguard, becoming the first human leader to set foot on an alien world. The talks were difficult. 12,000 years of supremacy could not be surrendered easily. The Zenthari delegates argued, threatened, and pleaded. They offered compromises that would have left the empire intact, just weakened. They proposed treaties that would have given humanity special status while keeping other species in bondage. President Vasquez rejected every such offer. "We did not fight to become partners in oppression," she said during one heated session. "We fought so that no species would ever have to bow to another again. The empire ends. Completely. That is not negotiable." While the diplomats argued, the war continued in smaller ways across the galaxy. Human strike teams, equipped with personal blink devices, appeared at Zenthari military installations throughout the empire. They disabled weapons, captured officers, and destroyed infrastructure critical to imperial control. They moved so quickly and unpredictably that the Zenthari could not mount any effective defense. Captain Daniel Hughes led the most important of these operations. He took a small force to the labor camps on Mordani Prime, where millions of conquered beings worked in mines and factories under brutal conditions. The guards surrendered within minutes of the human ships appearing. The workers, beings who had never known freedom, walked out of the camps and looked up at a sky that suddenly held hope. Similar scenes played out across the empire. The Telluri, gentle creatures who had surrendered without a fight 6 years earlier, wept with joy when human ships appeared above their world. The Krethon, a warrior species that had been enslaved for 3,000 years, immediately offered to join the fight against their former masters. But humanity did not want more soldiers. They wanted peace. "We will not build another empire," President Vasquez explained to the leaders of liberated species. "We will build something new. A community of equals. Every species with a voice. Every world with a vote. No one above, no one below." The concept was difficult for many to understand. The Zenthari way had dominated the galaxy for so long that most beings could not imagine any other system. Power meant domination. Strength meant control. The idea that powerful species might choose not to dominate weaker ones seemed impossible, but the humans insisted. And after what humanity had demonstrated, no one was inclined to argue. The Treaty of Earth was signed on December 21st, 2854. Almost exactly 7 years after the Zenthari first laughed at human diplomats. The ceremony took place in Geneva, in a hall that had been built specifically for this moment. Large enough to hold representatives from every spacefaring species in the galaxy, Emperor Vorith came in person, walking slowly down the long aisle to the signing table. He had aged visibly in the months since his empire's defeat. His crystalline skin had lost its sparkle. His 4 eyes were dull and tired. He signed the treaty without speaking, transferring control of the wormhole network to the newly formed Galactic Assembly. His signature ended 12,000 years of Zenthari supremacy. He walked out of the hall alone, returning to a homeworld that was no longer the capital of anything. Captain Hughes stood near the back of the room, watching the ceremony with mixed feelings. He had spent 7 years preparing for war. He had fought battles that would be studied for centuries. He had seen things that no human had ever seen before. But standing there, watching the Emperor sign away his power, Hughes felt no triumph, only relief that it was over and hope that something better would follow. Dr. Linda Marsh sat beside him. She had received the Nobel Prize for Physics a week earlier, though she insisted the award belonged to her entire team. Her hair was completely gray now, and she walked with a slight limp from an accident during the early testing years. But her eyes were bright as she watched the ceremony. "We did it," she said quietly. "We actually did it." "You did it," Hughes corrected. "Without the blink drive, we would be slaves right now. Or dead." Marsh shook her head. "Technology is just a tool. It takes people to decide how to use it. Your tactics, the Admiral's leadership, the President's vision, we all did it together. After the ceremony, President Vasquez gave a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. She stood before the assembled delegates, a small woman from a small planet that had somehow changed everything. 200 years ago, humanity was fighting wars with each other, she said. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. We were divided by nations, by religions, by ideologies. Many of our greatest thinkers believed we would never leave our own world. She paused, looking out at the alien faces watching her. But we changed. We learned to work together. We learned that cooperation was more powerful than conflict. We learned that our differences made us stronger, not weaker. And today, we offer that lesson to the galaxy. She gestured at the delegates around her. You are all different species, different biologies, different histories, different cultures, but you share something fundamental. You all want to live in peace. You all want to determine your own futures. You all want your children to have better lives than you had. Her voice grew stronger. The Galactic Assembly is your tool to achieve those goals. Use it wisely. Disagree with each other, debate with each other, challenge each other. But never forget that you are equals. Never forget that no species has the right to rule another. Never forget what the galaxy was like under the old system, and fight to make sure it never returns. Fleet Commander Ortiz retired after the treaty signing. She settled on a quiet colony world where she could watch the stars in peace. She had seen enough war for one lifetime. She had given enough orders that sent young people into danger. She was ready to rest. Captain Hughes remained in service. He was promoted to admiral, commanding the vanguard on exploration missions to the far edges of the galaxy. There were wonders out there that the Zenthari had never bothered to investigate, mysteries that humanity was eager to solve. He married Lieutenant Nina Cortez, the pilot who had destroyed the Gateway Station. And they raised 2 children aboard the ship they both loved. Director Samuel Patterson did not live to see the treaty signed. He passed away 3 months before the war ended, content in the knowledge that his life's work had succeeded. His last words, spoken to Dr. Marsh at his bedside, were simple. They laughed at us. They will never laugh again. The galaxy changed profoundly in the years that followed. Species that had cowered under Zenthari rule for centuries began to flourish. Trade expanded as new routes opened and old restrictions disappeared. Knowledge was shared freely, leading to advances that benefited everyone. Old enemies became new friends. The Zenthari themselves adapted more slowly. Many struggled to accept their new status as equals rather than masters. Some retreated into bitterness and isolation. But others, particularly among the younger generation, embraced the change. They discovered that partnership was more rewarding than domination. That respect was more valuable than fear. And at the center of it all, a small blue planet that had once been mocked as primitive and insignificant took its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as rulers, not as the new masters of the galaxy, but as equals. As friends, as partners in building something better than what had come before, humanity had proven something that the Zenthari had never understood. True strength was not measured in the size of your empire or the age of your civilization. True strength came from the refusal to accept the impossible, the determination to find another way, and the courage to stand up when the entire galaxy told you to kneel. The Zenthari had laughed at Earth. They had mocked human technology, dismissed human ambition, scorned human dreams. No one was laughing now. And in the vast darkness between the stars, where new wonders waited to be discovered and new challenges waited to be faced, humanity looked forward to whatever came next, together with the galaxy they had freed, together as equals, together at last.